Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Hello and welcome to the HMO Property Show. Today we're talking about something that is very close to my heart, housing, and particularly what happens to women later in life when suddenly the housing security they thought they had isn't there anymore. We often have an image in our heads of what homelessness looks like, but it can also look like a woman in her late 50s or 60s who has worked her entire life. She's raised children, she's contributed to her community, and then there's a divorce, a partner dies. She loses her job, rent increases beyond what she can afford, or she leaves a relationship and suddenly finds out that she does not be able to have a life with superannuation or savings to compete in today's housing market. At the 2021 census, around 7,300 Australian women aged 55 and over were experiencing homelessness. And here in WA, homelessness is amongst all people of all ages over 55. So all people over 55 increased by almost 24% in just 5 years. So this isn't a small problem. And my guest today is someone who isn't just talking about it, she's actually trying to create another solution. Dionne Payn is the founder of Women for Homes. And when I first learned about what Dionne was doing, I could immediately see an alignment with what we're trying to achieve through the HMO Property Core and living rooms. So today I want to understand the story behind Women for Homes, the women Dionne is trying to help, how her investment model works, and then we'll talk about a new partnership we're creating together. Dionne, welcome. That was a lengthy intro. I stumbled a little bit, but we got through it. I hope I did you justice.
Look, thank you. I'm just really grateful to be here and having this conversation with you.
So before we talk about Women for Homes, I just want to talk a little bit about you. So what were you doing before this? Like what kind of led you on this journey?
Well, I didn't set out to be involved in property or spearheading a movement. There's nothing like that at all. But my background's in science, and so that was the track that I was on all the way up until I came to university and did a PhD here. And I really did think that academia was going to be my thing. But a couple of things happened. One was that I learnt quite early on that academia wasn't the safe, secure employment type thing that I had initially thought it would be. And there's a lot of competition when it comes to academia. And there's a phrase, publish or perish. So you're only really deemed as good as the last paper that you published, and the workload is really high. And I think that one of the key things that I learned from that time as well was a female supervisor who was in her 70s and had worked all over the world. Like, she'd worked in some really prestigious places, including Harvard, all the places that I kind of looked at and thought, oh, I'd love to be able to work there. But she told us, she brought us together one time, it was a Women in Science event, and she said basically that she was in a position where she couldn't retire because she'd worked all over the world and she hadn't accumulated super. And she had a health condition, which, she really needed to be focusing on her and her health, but she couldn't, she just had to keep working. So that was my first kind of inkling that whole academic research side of things wasn't for me. Just really because I really did think it was going to be a job for life, and then realising that, it's actually quite shaky, and all of this time I've spent studying to try and get ahead of everybody else, and not being able to have that job security at the end was quite disconcerting. And then the other thing was that by the time I finished my PhD, I was in my early 30s, at child rearing age, so I went off to have babies. But then I was living in the Byron Shire, and I don't know if you know anything about this side of the world, but it's on the East Coast. Property's really expensive, and I just realised that staying at home with my kids, which was what I really wanted to do, being able to do that on one income wasn't going to help us to purchase a home. So that's where I got involved in property, because I just led back into, well, if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to learn how to do it. So I learned how to do property, signed up with a property developer educator. My husband did that, and we learned about property. The first project we did was a renovation and subdivision, and we got $30,000. So this is back in 2013. $30,000 was a lot of money in one chunk. And I was like, right, we've made it. This is what we're going to be doing from now on. So that's how I got into property.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. And obviously you've had the experience of the lady in her 70s and not having enough superannuation. But from the getting into property side, what then really made you have a look at, I guess, the women and the need for women getting into investments or housing themselves?
Well, it was the affordable housing piece that came first because I did a few small developments, and bearing in mind that the reason we got into development was really about ourselves and being able to be financially secure ourselves. But then about 4 projects in, I saw a piece of vacant land and it had development approval for 14 one-bedroom townhouses. And based on the feasibility, I realised that we could sell those townhouses for $350,000 when the median house price in that area was $600,000. So we're talking about one-bedroom units versus 3 or 4-bedroom homes. So it wasn't an apples for apples comparison, but what it did do was mean that people who thought they were priced out of the area, they actually had a leg in. And so I had friends that were able to buy into it, and I saw essential workers being able to buy into it. It was majority owner occupied. I saw investors being able to buy in, but working with community housing providers. So there was that kind of sort of fairness in it as well. So there was social housing that was being provided. And at the end of that project, which was pretty challenging, but at the end of that project, I could see that, wow, I can make money from affordable housing. And I can do something really meaningful for the community, because that affordable housing conversation was a big one and still continues to be. So yeah, I just got to see that, oh wow, I can do something that enriches me but also enriches other people. And a friend of mine, so my friend bought the first one. She paid $330 for hers, and 5 years later, and this was when the pandemic was in full swing, and lots of people were moving to the area from the cities. She was able to sell her home for $600,000. Now, she was a teacher. She would never have been able to earn that $270,000 gap. So yeah, I just got to see it's transformative on so many levels, and I didn't just want to go back and do property in any other way. There had to be that social good for me.
I love that, because I think it's underestimated how much investors can have so much impact in this space. So still being able to meet their needs financially, we've got to have a win-win for everybody. But that's what I love, and I love about what you do. And Neil and I actually started our first development was quite similar on a bit of a smaller scale, but we were doing single roomed homes in areas where people couldn't normally afford to get into, because we started at 3-4 bedrooms. So that's awesome. So I love that that's the start of your journey, and showcasing that really you can have impact yourself financially as well as supporting your community. So did you have any idea at that point how big the problem actually was with regards to women or housing affordability in general?
I knew it was big with housing affordability. That's of course how I started. I was like, well, we can't find a home. I didn't really realise the scale of the problem until I started looking into it more. And then around that time of the pandemic as well, I saw more and more women that were housing insecure. In fact, a friend of mine started a Facebook group because she heard about a woman who had gone to view a property with a baby, so solo mama with a baby, and she was denied being able to rent even though she could afford to live there because of her child. And so my friend just went, this is outrageous. She set up a Facebook group, and within a very short space of time there were about 6,000 women that were in that Facebook group. The majority of them were housing insecure. Some of them, like myself, sort of that side of things was sorted, and we just wanted to be able to help. So it was seeing that, and also talking to women who had been displaced because of that influx of people. And I remember talking to one woman, and she said, she was in her late 60s. She had been renting a property for a long time. She'd been there for maybe over 10 years, I can say. And that property had sold. And so she went to see other properties. She was paying a very low rent before. She went to see other properties. She basically had to make the decision of, was she going to pay the rent or not pay the rent, find a different solution like house sitting or couch surfing or whatever, just so she could stay healthy, because she had a health condition and she needed a lot of supplements to be able to manage that. And that was the decision that she was having to make. And it wasn't just her. I saw more people that were sleeping in their cars or sort of sleeping in caravans. So buying caravans and putting those on other people's land. And I just looked at that whole situation and was like, there's no dignity in that. It's just awful. And people make the best of what they can, for sure. But deep down, it's like, no. And then the other thing for me was just really seeing that there's one example of a lady in our local area who back in the day did a lot with helping young mums, particularly solo mums. So if they were struggling, she would be there to help them, maybe take the children, maybe give them advice, whatever. So I look at her as a bit of a grandma in the community, and she is still housing displaced. I've heard stories of her through friends that she'll, sort of be somewhere and then she'll ask somebody if she can go and stay with them. And sometimes the people that she's asking to stay with, she doesn't know them. So there's a safety issue there. And so I see that, the grandmothers of our communities and societies are the ones that are being discarded when they've got so much to give and they have given so much. So I started Women for Homes about 18 months ago. And it was on the back of, I'm raising money for property developers that are creating affordable homes. But I realised a couple of things. One was that the amount of money that I was raising, $50,000 as a minimum, it wasn't accessible to lots of people. And actually, it's the lots of people that it wasn't accessible to that were the ones that were more likely to be homeless later in life, because divorce, separation, disease, a number of different reasons for that, job insecurities, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to find a way to make investing into housing, investing into affordable housing more accessible. And so that's where Women for Homes started. And based on that, I really got to see that the group that is most affected, as you read out at the beginning, is older women, single older women. So if we can do something there, then whatever solution we come up with will ripple out to everybody else. So that's kind of the mission of Women for Homes, is really about addressing the housing crisis, but also addressing the financial insecurity that is leading to that homelessness statistic.
Yeah, well, this is a perfect opportunity for you to explain to listeners what Women for Homes does. Obviously we know the mission now, but kind of talk us through it.
Yeah, sure. So it's basically bringing women together to invest. And from $5,000, I believe that the more women we can bring together, like my goal is 1 million women, the more women we can bring together, we can have a really big impact on the housing crisis. And my goal is to end it completely. And I do believe that if more people realise that you could make money through investing into affordable and sustainable homes, then we wouldn't have a housing crisis in the first place. So that's the thesis that Women for Homes is really trying to prove, and through bringing women together to invest into property.
And is it just to invest into property, or is it when they invest in it, will that house become their home, or could it be a bit of both?
At this stage, there are so many ideas.
Yeah.
And that is definitely one of them. But at this stage, it's very much, let's invest, let's build, create rental properties, get people into homes, and then we can do so much more later.
Yeah, beautiful. So rather than people needing hundreds and thousands of dollars to start their investment journey, they can start with as little as $5,000.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell me about any of the projects you've managed to get the full capital for. I believe you've got capital at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we've got about 25 women so far that have said yes to investing, and the amount that they've said yes to investing ranges from $5,000 up to $350,000. So we've definitely got a range of women involved. The challenge is always when you're talking about raising money is how do you raise that compliantly? So we're working with an Australian financial services licensee, and so it just means that it's all registered with ASIC, and there's lots of governance in place and lots of protections for everyday investors, which is really cool. So we've got $1.3 million at the moment, and we're now in the process of looking for a piece of land and looking to where we're going to build this first one.
Awesome. And you've not just got the, group of women who want to invest, but you've also, because of the large group that you've opened up, you now can speak directly to the women who need housing. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so through a mixture of our own database and other people's databases, we can say, just we've got a home here. If you're interested, come on board. And then there's that whole process of how do we actually ensure that as women come together to get into homes, that there's going to be that cohesiveness and harmony and all of that.
Yeah, and this is not just in one state, right? You've got women all over Australia who you're talking to, right? Yeah, and that's same from investors and the people who are wanting homes. So you'll work with investors across Australia, whoever wants to put in for these properties, and any women across Australia can reach out to you through Women for Homes as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's incredible, and I loved it. We only spoke, it was probably about 4 to 6 weeks ago, wasn't it? Just realigning. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? We've done a lot in that time, and I love that. It's that getting multiple people to be able to invest, because I'd like to talk about women in their financial security as well, which I know is something that you've been quite across. The importance of that. Can you tell me about the importance of women being able to do their own investments and why?
Yeah, look, I think it comes down to financial sovereignty, and I hear a lot from women, and so women, I'm putting you in the same category as me, in age category, because I think we're pretty similar. But so women our age who are saying, my husband has control of the finances, or they're about to leave a relationship and they don't know how they're going to make it work. Or I was at a party one time and I overheard a conversation. I probably shouldn't have. I wasn't being nosy, but it's just, I got quite incensed. A lady was saying that her husband had said that he would give her 30% of everything, but she had been home with the children, helping him to grow his business, having a couple of investment properties. And I said, I'm sorry to interrupt. However, I have a podcast. I've had a podcast guest talking about exactly this thing. Can I give you the link to that podcast? And she said yes. And so that, hopefully that's changed the trajectory for her. But yeah, it just makes me angry. And it's not I really want to point out, this is not a male female thing, and there's definitely bad behavior on both sides. But the sacrifice and the work that's involved in bringing up children is not valued. It's not valued at many levels at all. It's not valued by the government. It's only recently that they've said that the government will now pay parental leave. There was an insurance company in the US that they valued all of the tasks that, and let's just say the stay-at-home parent, they valued all of the tasks that they had to do, and the cost if they needed to outsource that. And basically the value of that work, and that, that includes the overtime. When your kid's sick.
Always on.
The shopping, the cleaning, picking up your child's undies because they've just dropped them everywhere, all of that, that was valued, and that the value of that unpaid work is $300,000 a year in Australian dollars.
Yeah, wow. And that's not even taking into account the mental load, because I actually think there's a higher mental load. And I feel I can actually say this as a business owner and as a mum, that I find it, the load mentally harder at home than I do at work. And, we can go through lots of different things at work and with the team and different business developments. But I do think that, I take my hat off to women who are at home all that time and give so much of themselves to their children. And when they're growing up and you have to, they don't have the same logic as an adult does, so you have to kind of navigate all of that. Yeah, I think the value's through the roof, but I do hear a lot of mums say, I know, but I don't work. I'm like, you're working harder because of it.
Yeah, exactly. All I think is that if there was a recognition of the level of work and the value of work, then we just wouldn't be in this situation. So, can you imagine having a $300,000 salary for being at home? Your super would be amazing.
Absolutely.
And so that is the issue. That's the crux of the issue, really. We don't value it, and therefore women feel guilty about staying home and not contributing. And then when a separation, divorce happens, the sort of overarching way of looking at this is, well, you didn't contribute and therefore you get 30%.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it is terrible. And, we do work with a lot of organisations around domestic violence, and we know that one of the things in that is the financial abuse itself of, like, them not even feeling that they are capable enough to make any financial decisions or understand finances. So I love what you're doing in this space, because it really does open it up on a level of, it's a small entry to investment that they can then start building confidence with. And I think confidence is huge. So thank you for what you're doing. It's incredible work.
Yeah, thank you. And it's fun as well. Like my husband said to me yesterday, he was like, "Oh, so what are you doing today?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm taking some women on a tour of an affordable housing project and a sustainable home, and then we're going to have lunch." And it was like, "You're living the life." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes, I am."
Yeah, and because you love what you do, and that is the main thing, isn't it? Are all of your homes going to be like a co-living, kind of the shared living route?
Well, yes, but not necessarily in the way that we're thinking of it in terms of, 5 bedrooms and each with its own ensuite. I mean, that's where we start because the rules around rooming houses are fairly straightforward. You don't need development approval. I don't know what the term is everywhere else, but in New South Wales it comes under complying development. So it's something that can be fast tracked. It doesn't have to take very long. You don't even have to go to council in some cases. You can work with a private certifier. So that just really simplifies things and makes the barrier to entry quite low, but
And
the
just to
impact
note to
quite
the
high.
listeners, it is different in every state. So some states are a little bit harder. So just as a note, but yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
I just don't want
clarifying.
everyone going, oh, this is quick. If some of ours are stuck in approvals.
But I do see that, the problem that we have. I mean, co living caters for single people or couples. I know in some cases couples can live there. But then we've got to think about, well, what happens with families or what happens if we've got, basically, I think that we need solutions that cater for intergenerational living, for blended families. So affordable housing across the whole continuum really is what's important. But like I said, we start with co living because it's easy. And then we work with developers that are doing good stuff and need funding for that.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, maybe it's our time to, I guess, dig in a little bit about the partnership that we're going to put forward, and then we'll talk about the goals of Women for Homes, because I feel like we're going to align a lot in our goals, and I'm sure that we as a business can support you as well, because we are always looking forward to how to create more housing for people that need it. A lot of our properties now, we're putting ancillaries on there, so women with children can actually go into some of these homes as well. So it's good as we
I didn't
develop.
know that. That's very cool.
Yes, yeah. So I think what I love is that you've got a really good understanding of that market in general, and you've got access to that market, and we've got access to the housing and the development side of it. So that's where I see our strengths lie. So let's talk a little bit about what we, I guess, discussed and how we would love to be able to support Women for Homes and then bring on the end development. Do you wanna chat through it, Jo?
Yeah, let's chat through it.
Yeah.
But you start.
Yeah. So obviously we had the conversation and realized that, you are putting groups of women together to raise capital to be able to put into these projects. And we also have a lot of clients or a lot of people who come to us because they want to get into this style of investment property. But a lot of people just don't have the full amount of funds required to do their own HMO or co-living development themselves. So we are going to be speaking to anybody who is inquiring with us, who wants to get on an investment journey or wants to be able to invest this way into a co-living product, but give them access to yourself so that you can start building more funds of capital. So it's not just women that'll be putting into it from, for women being interjected into finance, into an actual fund or an investment, but these are anybody who just wants to be able to help and support and have some impact in the community whilst making a return on investment, which is obviously also really, really important. So yeah, we're hoping to launch that next week with you, which is incredible. So obviously once you get your fund together, we'll then go out and source the land and do the build for you and then pass it on to Living Rooms, who will manage the property. And what I love is that we would love, we speak to a lot of organisations in WA with regards to women coming out of refuge who would like specific all women households, but not necessarily all women who've come out of a DV situation. So us together, being able to work, to be able to put women of all ages into a home together with all different backgrounds and stories and how they can support each other and connect will be incredible. And we will look to do that in both Perth and Melbourne.
That is going to be so cool. I'm so excited about that. A couple of things. I'm so happy that this opens up, because while we're talking about women for homes and supporting women and that financial sovereignty, there are so many men that are really aligned with this mission as well. And so I feel that what we're doing is just being really inclusive, and I love that aspect of it. And yeah, just again opening up to women that need these homes and being able to provide all women homes is really cool. And yeah, just next level. I love it.
Yeah. No, it is so good. And, you know, you're so right. And I do want to speak to men about this conversation because, you know, I picked up a lot at International Women's Day early in the year. And we do talk a lot about, you know, women going through things and financial abuse on women. And we know that this happens from a male perspective as well. But we also know there's a lot of really, really, really good men out there, and my husband being one of them, but wants to help in these situations and be able to make impact when they can. And like what you said earlier about, you know, investors being able to get into investments and also being able to create impact is so important. And there's a lot of good people out there that, you know, they want good returns because they need good returns themselves, otherwise they're not going to do it, but they can make that impact on the way, which is incredible. So I can see us making a good dent in that. So I hope that that's the case. Let's talk about like the actual vision and go. I mean, you want to help 1 million women.
Well, I want 1 million women to invest into property at a very affordable, accessible way. So that's not a cap, you know, sort of 1 million women. That's not the cap at all, and it doesn't have to be 5,000. It can be more. So I'm not putting a cap on the amount either. But I really do believe that because of the power of leverage, we're talking about. Let's say we do get to 1 million women investing $5,000, that's $5 billion. And then when you add leverage to that, that unlocks, you know, another $20 billion. And I also feel that it's not just about the dollar value, it's about the sort of unseen, softer stuff, like the, you know, the goodwill and the inspiration and all of that. I just feel that a lot of people that are pulling in the same direction, there's a lot of power and weight behind that. And the other thing I haven't really mentioned, I haven't really touched on, is that what's happening at the moment and that financial vulnerability and housing affordability is basically a system that's not working in the best interest of lots of people. And there's this really great quote that I love by Buckminster Fuller, which is along the lines of, don't rail against the existing system, create a new one that makes the old one obsolete. I just feel that, you know, all of that energy going towards creating a new system, you just can't go wrong with that. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah. And what scale would you like to get to? How many houses would you like to do?
Gee whiz, I haven't even thought about that. Like I'm just so fixated on that 1 million women, $5,000.
Well, why don't we, and we'll put a line in the sand on this podcast as our partnership goal of creating, should we say like 50 homes, 100 homes?
I reckon we could do 100 homes.
100 homes.
Yeah,
let's create 100 homes through our partnership so that we can create more housing for women, and not maybe just women, but women with children, you know, the different opportunities that we can on our journey. So these don't have to just be the standard model. We can look at how we can align with what the audience requires, but also to get more and more women into these investments as well, so that they have more confidence with investing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, you know, if we can get to a point where everybody is financially sovereign, then that's a really great thing. And so, yeah, it's not exclusive to women. It's very much, but I do believe that we get it right with women, we get it right with everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and it will trickle down then to the generations, and hopefully we can put an end in some capacity. I know that we can't do it on our own, but I know there's so many people that want to help this situation. And if we can get more women into housing, more women financially stable or savvy or educated. But also I just know that there's a lot of people even in our network. There's one investor in particular who is really wanting to create more homes for women over 55, over the age of 55, because she's had friends that that experienced where they've actually been in a really affluent and position with their husband, and then something's happened and they're couch surfing, or they can't continue to send their children to the school that they sent them to. So I just think that there is so many people in all our networks and everyone listening that wants to create some impact. And when we launch this, I just urge everybody to have a look at Women for Home's website. I know that, Dionne, you're going to be doing some webinars for anyone who's interested to go into the investment side of it. And we'll start for investors, for savvy investors, there'll be a larger cap. It won't be the $5,000. So obviously there'll be a different entry requirement, just to make sure then that we can get the right people to invest to create more homes as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm really, really excited about this, and I think that we've spoke a lot about the women being able to get financially more secure, and the types of women that need this housing. So yeah, we can help with both at both ends of the stream.
Absolutely. And I just love that, we've kind of come together. Like you said, it's only been about 4 weeks that we started talking to each other, but on very similar track. And now the power of our combined forces is just going to go.
That's it. Two is more powerful than one. We always say that in our relationship as well, mine and Neil. Like, I think that the more that we can all come together, we can create way more impact.
Yeah.
So I'm going to finish with I want you to finish this sentence for me as the kind of end closing. Every woman deserves
safety, security, and dignity.
Thank you. So what I love about this conversation is that it ultimately isn't really about property. It's about security, dignity, independence, and connection. And I think sometimes we look at Australia's housing crisis as the numbers are so enormous that we wonder how any of us can actually make a difference. But perhaps we don't solve it with one solution. Perhaps we solve it by creating lots of different housing choices for lots of different people. Women for Homes is creating one of those pathways, and I'm incredibly excited that and living rooms are going to be a part of helping turn that vision into actual homes. Dionne, thank you so much, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this whole project and partnership and Women for Homes themselves.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am just bursting with excitement.
Me too.
I'm trying to sound cool, calm and collected, but I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, no, we are very excited over here too. So listeners,
Awesome.
You can watch out for next week. We'll be sending emails out about this partnership and how you can contribute to Women for Homes.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.